Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Simon Kennedy Ellis.
I'm going to say it's good to hear your voice, and then you say,
It's good to hear your voice too, Simon.
"Well done, you." That's the kind of little bit of exchange there that happens between human beings, phatic communion, and all that kind of stuff.
What can we say? Week on week growth.
I know. Just big congratulations for your for that growth.
Thank you. I feel like I've taken a massive stride forward this week.
Yeah, I think you probably have as well. It's nice to be it's nice to witness that growth as well. It's nice to be privy to it. Do you know I wanted to talk to you about something.
Oh,
can we just dive? Unless have you got any housekeeping? Anything to catch up
I don't
on?
think we've any housekeeping. I told you about my underpants last week. There's nothing more to tell.
I think you've been telling me about your underpants like the last 3 weeks.
Well, it's a pivotal moment in
But
my
you
life.
still
But
haven't
anyway.
sent me the link to those. So you
shit,
said you would
I
do it
haven't,
last
have
week, mofo.
Oh, I am
You have
so
not.
sorry. Oh, I just want you to continue to be in threadbare keks. All right, let's rip off the
Keks.
plaster and jump keks. Undercrackers. Shreddies.
Wait, is Kek a brand?
Keks? Nah,
Yeah.
just what we used to call them. Your keks. Have you got
Underpants.
keks on? Underkeks. Underkeks,
Like
undercrackers.
Dax.
Ah, yeah. So you'd say tracky dax, wouldn't you? And dax.
Yeah, under Dax.
So,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
here
He
in
daxed,
the
he daxed me. I think we used to say when someone would pull up your underwear. He daxed. No, daxed.
Yeah, no. I don't think there is a kext version of that, but it's like, have you got your crackers on? That would be undercrackers. Or have you got your keks on? Keks, I think, was probably the more, as a child, as a youngster, it was more ubiquitous than crackers.
Undercrackers is fantastic.
Yeah. Undercrackers, but
also
I liked
much less
undercrackers.
confusing than pants, which they do in this country, which still I get wrong. This is a podcast in which two friends talk about the pleasures, absurdities, and imperfections of being human. I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller. Welcome to Midlifing.
Well, I don't know how... I think it's a bit serious. I don't know. I think a couple of weeks ago I messaged you about. Well, I'll whip with the plaster off. I've noticed with my colleagues. I noticed a certain amount of, I'm going to call it ambivalence/fear when it comes to large language models, and it's curious. It's curious because I haven't been a big user, although in the last 2 months I have been. And when I say have been, I'm paying. And I had been previously, and then I went, I'm not using this enough to warrant this amount of money each month. And I certainly am now. And partly because even a year ago, the increase in quality is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, freaky.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was curious about two things. One is where you at with it, and in relation to the fear thing, particularly as people who are, as they say, knowledge workers. You and I are. As much as I like to imagine that I'm a baker and a dancer, I am a knowledge worker. And the second thing is there's a business writer, blogger, very well known, very famous, called Seth Godin. Been writing a blog for donkey's years and writes bestsellers every year. So business people love him, right? And I get why. Anyway, his latest thing was he put out a little I don't know what they call it now. I forget what they call it when you've basically built a kind of little I think with ChatGPT, I think they call them GPTs, which is basically like a little kind of application that works within the framework. So they use an API to build a little application that uses the power of the large language model.
Okay.
Right? Is that anyway? Mm-hmm. Anyway, he's got a book called This Is Strategy, and he has one of these little mini applications called This Is Strategy, and it says let me just check. Let me just get the prompt is this. The prompt is what it asks you. It uses Claude, by the way. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the prompt is, what is the change you seek to make? Now, just bear with me because I can imagine that might make you, and it makes me a little bit like, oh, right? And so I wrote this, just playing with it first time, to seek and find balance between how I spend my time at work and the things I do at home, which I think calls on the conversation we had last week.
Yeah.
That's all I said to it. And then its response. That's a meaningful pursuit. The tension between work and home life touches something fundamental about how we want to show up in the world. When you think about this balance you're seeking, I'm curious about what's driving this desire for change right now. It is work. Wait on, I can't. Is it work that is expanding into your home? Blah, 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 blah. That'll do. Which is, you could say it's generic, but it's something more than that. And I remember kind of going, wow, it's really, and it picks up on the word balance. Like, could you tell me more about the word balance? Which I think what it made me think of was exactly the kind of thing I might have said to an undergraduate who'd written me something, that's interesting. When you use that word balance, can you tell me more about that? So there you go. I'm mentioning that second example as a kind of felt like the potential, the beginnings of a rabbit hole for me, that I could have spent my time, and I can imagine people who are doing it all the time, who are basically in using LLM chatbots, who are going deep into stuff where they're thinking about their lives, which terrifies me slightly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough for background. I'm curious about where you're at, what you think, and where we might disagree.
I have questions. I was at an event that Creative UK ran in February, which is called something called, I don't remember the name of it, something like The Tipping Point or something like that. Anyway, it was a conversation that was there was a screening of a documentary. It was really interesting. It was about generative AI and images, and then this guy who had effectively built a blockchain which made it so that digital images, could be effectively caught in aspic. So that what you had is the moment that you took that photograph, you put it through this blockchain, it meant that nobody could ever challenge the authenticity of its
veracity
data.
of it.
Yeah. So I thought, that's really interesting. And then the conversation afterwards started with, this is an epistemic crisis. And I thought, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I mean, who doesn't love an epistemic crisis?
Yeah.
I mean, when I get home on a Friday night, crack open a beer, I think, what am I going to think about? I'm going to think about all our epistemic crises.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to watch Andor.
No, I want a crisis of episteme. So, almost immediately after this is an epistemic crisis.
Have you noticed how fashionable the word epistemology and epistemic is these days?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, seriously, 5 years ago, anyway, it's everywhere now.
Oh, I know, it is, absolutely. Also, I did want to go, I'm not sure it's epistemic. I think it might be ontological, but I didn't want to get into an argument. But I did actually eventually get into a little bit of an argument, because the discussion was, how are we going to ensure that artists continue to be paid? And so I was like, okay, so this is a crisis of capital.
It's an entirely different crisis, which, of course, which dancers have never had to worry about because we never got paid in the first place.
Body bait artists? When did we ever pay our rent in the work that we did?
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
So immediately I've got photographers and I've got musicians going,
who stole the money from the painters when photography was first invented.
But it was an interesting moment where they were positioning this as a kind of an epistemic crisis, but it was a crisis of capital for them. And I was absolved of this anxiety because I've never been properly recompensed for any of my art practice. And by properly, I mean ever. Yeah. Not I've made enough money to.
Yeah, I survived on mine for 10 years, but it was a stretch.
Yeah, 2 years I managed. That was all, and 2 years was enough for me to go, fuck this for a game of soldiers. I want a mortgage.
Show title. And by the way, I say show. I'd say show title because I don't listen to these episodes now. They get transcribed automatically using a large language model called software called Whisper, and then ChatGPT chooses a list of show titles. So when I just basically adding a marker to help ChatGPT. It takes me all of 5 minutes now. You're doing the labor by doing the editing. You realize? I know that you knew that.
I did know that. And that's fine.
Thank you.
That's okay. So
marker ChatGPT. Cut this bit out.
Or not. I think that so I think the conversation that the conversation I was party to crystallized something for me, that there was an anxiety around ownership that I probably didn't feel as strongly. And I know that is generative AI, not a large language model. So I know that we're talking about two separate things.
Yeah, no, but I think they're
interconnected, of course.
Yeah. I think when we're talking about generative AI, we are talking about the use of large language models that.
They were talking about generative in terms of image generation. So they were talking about the DALL-Es. They were talking about all of those.
But they're still the same. They're still machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I find myself using it very rarely to generate copy. So I don't use it to use my writing. I don't use it to do my writing for me. I will sometimes use it to tell me where there's redundancies in my writing, which is helpful to kind of go, have I said this already? In an 8,000 word piece of writing, where is the repetition and redundancy, and can you just highlight it so that I can go back and think about it? So I'm not asking it to change it; I'm asking it to highlight it, which is very useful. I've liked that. I've liked LLMs for that for a long time, but not really for generating stuff. Where I think it's really helpful for me is in the space of managing interpersonal complexity.
Wow.
So I get a lot of emails. And I think anybody who has spent any time listening to this podcast will know my default response to a thing.
Do both your knees jerk, or is it just one in particular?
See what I mean? I get quite heated in my response to stuff.
It's news here. It's news to me.
I know. And sometimes there will be, just this, maybe not this week, maybe the week before, I got an email from someone and I just thought, Jesus Christ, this is so fucking passive-aggressive. I was really just frustrated by the tone, by the
tone of an email. It's so interesting, isn't it?
I know. I was frustrated by the implications of what I'd done wrong. I was frustrated by the fact that this person wasn't taking responsibility for their actions and they were trying to put it all on my door. And I was just like, okay, how do I respond to an email that I am already so...
hot under the collar.
Yeah.
On the defensive, for sure.
Absolutely. So I simply put the prompt, I feel attacked by this email. It feels passive-aggressive. I feel as if I am being accused of a series of things that I don't believe I've done. And as a result, I want to push back. Do you think this is a fair assessment of this email? Guess what, Simon?
It's not a fair assessment.
No, it said, oh, okay, so there is nothing passive-aggressive about this email. If anything, the tone is self-deprecating. They are claiming a lack of confidence in this territory. There are some assertions that you might be to blame for some of their missteps, but only by the fact that you are within an institutional context that, blah, blah, blah.
It's not your fault. It's,
exactly.
That's the parameters you're working within.
Yeah. And the moment that I had that, like, I don't believe you. And immediately was like, no, you're wrong, large language model. So I went back to it and I went, are you really sure? Because then I sort of select bits and go, what about this? What about this? And it just does this lexical analysis that says, no, this is what a passive-aggressive version of that sentence would look like.
Does it really?
Yeah. If you give it, you know, if you
And
play enough time.
is it passive aggressive in an English? Do you have to say British passive aggressive? Because I imagine
Oh,
British passive aggression is
I've
very
already-
different from American.
I've already set up my my expectations
basic-
that it speaks
yeah,
to me in
exactly.
British academic English. It knows my job.
Yeah.
It knows
doesn't
how
add
I
Oxford
engage.
commas.
No,
It uses S's instead of Z's for visualization.
absolutely.
So you don't have to cut those out to be found
Oh
out
my
that
God.
you've used.
I've also told it to stop using the M dash because it's really frustrating.
Oh, I love an M dash. I think I prefer M dashes over N dashes.
I don't like dashes very much at
It's
all.
the motherfuckers that use hyphens instead of no. They really. I mean, that should be like.
Honestly, I prefer. Do you know? I prefer parentheses. That's me. That's just
I
me.
prefer none of them should exist in if we're trying to make language as accessible as possible.
I
Anyway,
agree. Yeah. So what I
that
have
is
found
fascinating.
is that it has allowed
I've
me
never
to.
used it for that context.
It's just I found it amazing because what it does is it takes the temperature out of my response, and so what I don't do is I don't
Don't stew over that.
I don't stew, and I also am able to give a response that is much clearer. And there's been a couple of emails recently where I've said, "Do you think this needs a response?" Because my immediate response is to go, "Well, actually," and you know the Chat GPT goes, "No, no need to respond to this. It looks
Wow.
informational."
Wow, I love that. Basically, ChatGPT is giving your thighs a massage to stop your knees jerking.
What it's doing is I think it is making me, and it has been for a while, it has been making me a less reactive colleague.
Do you think you could? Do you think you could
Have a
do you think
chip
it
put
has-
in my head so I do it in real life, and that'll be good.
Well, that's the future. But do you think it? Yeah, do you think it has some kind of transfer of learning to you in real situations, like in a face-to-face
No.
situation? No, okay.
No.
So
But I
basically,
think-
now it's creating this massive discrepancy between
No, I don't-
how you are via email and how you are face-to-face.
No, I think
Well,
it's
he's a real
probably no.
asshole face-to-face.
I don't think I've ever been. I think I'm quite good at holding my frustration in real
Face-to-face.
life.
Yeah.
Because there's too much
social
effective nuance
Oh,
that's
totally.
happening in the room.
Yeah.
And that's where I struggle when people, and particularly because I am aware that we both spend a lot of our time writing. You know, if we were to be
I
honest
don't
with
know.
ourselves,
I've just got ChatGPT doing all mine.
that's not true. We are professional writers.
Yes,
As
I've
in,
spent a
we get
lot
paid
of
to
my
write.
life writing.
Yeah. And I am struck by the fact that lots of people communicate with me who are not writing all the time.
So, yeah.
And so I'm reading with a sense of like nuance and why did they choose that word? And it's like, probably because it was the first one that came to them. And I've already done 4 drafts of the email that I've sent. That's why. So it just helps me be less angry.
I think it would. I guess I'm thinking. So, one thing it is made clear to me in the last few months is how much of what we do, and I spend a lot of my time supporting and writing funding requests. Like, it's a big chunk of my job.
Yeah.
It's part of my job, weirdly, that I quite enjoy. Quite enjoy thinking about how they work, about the way in which they're organized together, about the clarity of language, all sorts of things which are incredibly challenging to do. But
Yeah.
it's fair to say that they are more formulaic than I think I ever would have imagined, including the clarity of the language and all the kinds of, and the expectations of the funder, all those things. And so it's not surprising then that a huge amount of that labor, for which I've been training myself mostly over the last, let's say, 10 to 20 years, is easily shipped out to a large language model.
Yeah.
It's mind-bogglingly good at generating something from very little. Now, there's something about my capacity because of my experience to be able to go, that's not quite right, etc., etc., etc. So I feel like it's making my job a lot more efficient. Like I'm getting quicker because of the use of large language models. But it's different for, say, I've got a colleague who's just starting out, who is at a very different stage of their career in terms of their capacity to write. Very good writer, but very different in terms of how quickly and how much language they have to call on, organizing, structuring, ideas where things are not clear, etc. It's a much more complicated scenario for them to have access to this thing than it is for me.
Yeah, but it's this. And I think the more that we demonize it and the more that we sort of try to legislate against its use, the more that people will just use it covertly and not actually work out it's a tool. And like any tool, you've got to figure out how to deploy it. That's
a different skill from the one. That's a different skill. That's the skill I'm learning to use now, which is a different skill from the ones I learned 20 years ago, 30 years ago, writing.
Yeah,
those are very different skills.
Yeah. I guess I hadn't thought of it in quite that way.
Because in a way I go, if I think about it now, I go, actually, what is it that I can do here that the large language model can't do? How am I using my brain here that thing cannot yet do? And I'm a little bit stuck where I go, well, I know I'm doing something here. I know, and it's not what the large language model is doing, but I don't know how to name that. I definitely don't know what it is precisely. And it definitely presents a problem for a 31-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 29-year-old relatively new academic.
Yeah.
But the other thing, which of course is the fear thing, is recognizing the fear in my colleagues who basically said it's ridiculous, we shouldn't be, and then noticing also that the universities, that's prepared a draft. It already has some stuff online, but it's preparing a draft policy statement about the use of large language models for researchers at the university.
Yeah,
and it's very interesting looking at it because they've basically drawn a line in the sand about what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. That somehow they imagine that academics are going to hold themselves accountable to not operating across that line, that not going beyond that line, which I think is false. I just don't think. And so they've basically created a line above, which is to your point, which we will no longer be transparent about our use of it.
Yeah.
Tricky, isn't it?
It is tricky. It is tricky. And I think probably I find it tricky because I enjoy writing. And so I wouldn't want to offload the activity. I wouldn't, because it does something different to my thinking. I think more clearly as a result of trying to put things into words. And then sometimes it's helpful to just know, have I repeated myself? And that's really what I use it for. Have I said that before?
You just did, you repeated it. In fact, we could check. We could get the large language model to check this particular. Yeah. So did he repeat him? Yes, he did.
Yeah, you did. That look at that sentence. Look at that sentence. That feels like it's And also sometimes it's just like when you're rearranging your writing, you copy and paste, and you literally put the same sentence in more than one place. Yeah. Because and that's the other thing, of course, isn't it? That we're behaving as if we haven't learnt to write differently by working on
computers,
in word processing. Yeah. It's like if you want everybody to go back to just being a lexical thinker, give them a pen and paper, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake. On that bombshell.
I love that. I love that it's becoming a kind of way of saying goodbye. That you say that bombshell.
On that bombshell. I know. I know.
It wasn't really a bombshell, was it?
I know it wasn't. It's such a frustrating little verbal tick I've picked up here in this. Yeah. Actually, not just here. I think I probably do it at the end of a committee. And on that bombshell, let's leave.
See you later. Sorry.
Before I was going to say we know someone. We know a person in common who. I think I've said this on the podcast. We just go da da da, which is the shorthand for his full version, which is da da da. Bored now, which I think perhaps I should just bring back to fashion at the end of a committee.
I just love how I reckon you could get away with that. I mean, the first time might be a little bit difficult for people, but I reckon they'd get used to it.
Yeah.
Also, if you're spending the entire time knitting, I mean, see ya.
Bye.